Hello students, this is Adjunct Professor Moran, Macroeconomics 111. In our last session we discussed gross domestic product, how to calculate it using the income and expense approach, and how to calculate other important statistics in connection with that. Tonight we're going to discuss Chapter 19, the business cycle, unemployment, and inflation, the three major macroeconomic variables. We're going to start with gross domestic product. It's important to grow gross domestic product, which is, that growth can be measured either for the economy as a whole, as an increase in real GDP from $20 trillion, for example, to $21 trillion, or it can be calculated as a per capita measure, where, as you remember from a prior lesson, we discussed total gross domestic product, maybe $20 trillion divided by the population, maybe 340 million, and you get a per capita GDP of approximately $58,000 per person. So we want to grow both of those statistics, and it's important because growth lessens the burden of scarcity. We're doing a better job of satisfying material wants, and there's less hardship. Now, where does growth come from? It's going to come from both supply and demand factors. It's going to come from producers and consumers, and I say consumers in this sense, I'm meaning all the variables of gross domestic product expense approach. We need to increase either the quantity or quality of resources, or both. And remember that the four factors of production are land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. So, for example, from U.S. history, we had unlimited integration for a long time, and that was an increase in the quantity of labor. And through public education, we've also increased the quality of labor, and that's going to grow our economy and help us overcome scarcity. We settled from coast to coast, increasing the quantity of that natural resource. Capital, the United States is very capital intensive. For example, during the Industrial Revolution, we relied more and more on equipment. And finally, entrepreneurship. If you remember from U.S. history, your high school days, they talked about were those leaders of the Industrial Revolution, captains of industry. And so we've increased our quality of entrepreneurship. When it comes to capital, we can increase the amount of it. We can also increase the quality of it. And we increase the quality of capital by the use of technology. Technology is the knowledge and techniques that can be used to produce goods and services. Okay, it's estimated that in the United States, 2/3 of our increase in GDP comes from changes in productivity, which is a per unit measure of output, and 1/3 from more inputs. So 2/3 from increases in quality and 1/3 from quantity. But just because businesses can make more doesn't mean that they will. This has to be met by demand. So if no one buys the output, businesses won't make the output. And so there has to be increased spending by the four variables of gross domestic product: consumers, business spending, which IG, gross private domestic investment, government spending, and imports, exports, net exports. They must buy this output or no growth will occur. What happens is, if businesses supply it, but people don't buy it, you'll have an increase in unplanned inventory growth. And they mention this now, but it's going to be very important in coming chapters as a signal, as a leading economic indicator of what's going to happen to business output. And so if there's an unplanned increase in inventory, that's unsold output. As a result, business will lay off factors of production and unemployment will rise. There will also be efficiency factors. When we look at growth, are we achieving economic efficiency? And that's going to be full employment and full production, if you remember from our discussion of production possibilities curves. There'll be productive efficiency, the least cost method of production. This will put us on any one production possibilities curve. Also, we need to achieve allocated efficiency, making the one point on production possibilities curve that most satisfies society's wants, considering the alternate goods that can be produced.